What if I told you that 30 days, just 30 ordinary days, could completely rewire the way you see the world, the way you treat strangers, the way you go to sleep at night?
And what if the secret wasn't about praying harder, or fasting longer, or posting more inspirational quotes on Instagram, but about something so simple, so human, that most of us walk past it every single day?
Today on Talk, Learn, Teach, we're diving into a challenge that honestly shook us both to the core. 30 days, 30 good deeds, one Ramadan. And the stories that came out of it, we promise you are not ready.
Stay with us. This one's going to stay with you long after you close this episode. Assalamu alaikum, and a warm, warm welcome to everyone joining us today. Whether you're listening from a cozy corner of your home, stuck in traffic, cooking in the kitchen, or somewhere halfway around the world, we see you. We're so glad you're here.
And to our non-Muslim friends tuning in, welcome with open arms. This conversation is for every single human being who has ever wanted to do more good in the world and just didn't know where to start. You belong here too.
I'm Zara.
And I'm Bilal. And together, we are Talk, Learn, Teach, a space where we talk about the things that matter, learn from each other's stories, and teach through lived experience.
If this is your first time here, you picked the perfect episode to start with. And if you've been with us for a while, you already know what this community is about. Real conversations, real people, real change.
Before we jump in, we want to ask one small thing. If anything we say today moves you, surprises you, or makes you think, please hit that subscribe button on Talk, Learn, Teach. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Leave us a comment. That's how we grow. That's how this message reaches more hearts.
And trust us, today's message deserves to travel far. So let's begin. Okay, so let's talk about where this idea even came from. Because honestly, Zara, this wasn't something we planned months in advance with a spreadsheet and a content calendar.
No, definitely not a spreadsheet moment. It was actually born out of a very honest, very vulnerable conversation I had with myself during the last Ramadan. I was sitting after iftar, full, grateful, quiet. And I started thinking about how every Ramadan I make these massive spiritual goals. I'll read the whole Quran, I'll pray every Taraweeh, I'll donate this much. And every year around day 12, I'd feel like I was failing because I couldn't keep up with my own expectations.
That's so real. I think so many people feel that. The pressure we put on ourselves during Ramadan is enormous sometimes.
Exactly. And I thought, what if instead of making Ramadan about what I accomplish for myself, I make it about what I give to others? One good deed a day. Just one. Not grand, not expensive, not Instagrammable. Just one genuine act of goodness every single day for 30 days.
And when she told me about it, I won't lie. My first reaction was, that sounds beautiful, but also kind of easy. Like, how hard can one good deed a day be?
And then you actually tried it.
And then I actually tried it. And I want to publicly apologize to my past self for being so naive. Because here's the thing. One good deed a day sounds simple until you start paying attention to what a good deed actually means. It's not just dropping coins in a box. It's intentional. It's present. It's sometimes uncomfortable. It stretches you in ways you didn't expect.
That's exactly the point. And today, we want to walk through this challenge, not as a to-do list, not as a how-to guide, but as a story, because we collected stories from ourselves, from our community, from people who reached out to us. And those stories are what this episode is built on.
So think of this less as a podcast and more as a campfire. Pull up a chair. Let's share.
The first week of Ramadan always has this electric energy, doesn't it? Everyone is motivated. The mosques are full. The group chats are buzzing with Ramadan Mubarak messages. And there's this collective exhale that happens, like the whole world just slowed down a little.
Week 1 of the challenge, we call it deeds that look inward, because before you can pour into others, you have to check what's inside your own cup.
Day 1 was about something we called the apology deed, and the rule was simple. Reach out to one person you owe an apology to. Not a justification, not an explanation, just a genuine, clean, honest sorry.
I sat with this for a long time on day 1, longer than I expected, because when you really sit still and ask yourself, who have I hurt and never properly apologized to, names start coming up, and some of them surprised me. A cousin I had a falling out with over something so minor I could barely remember it anymore. A colleague I had dismissed publicly in a meeting years ago and never circled back to.
What did you do?
I texted the cousin, just a short message. I've been thinking about how things ended between us. I was wrong to handle it the way I did. I miss you. That's it. No agenda, no expectation of a reply.
Did he reply?
He replied within 3 minutes. With a voice note that made me cry in my car like an absolute mess. He said he'd been waiting for that message for 2 years. 2 years, Zara. We'd both been waiting.
Subhanallah. See, this is what this challenge does. It forces you to clear out the rooms inside yourself that you've kept locked.
Day 2 was about something we called the listening deed. One full, uninterrupted conversation where you say almost nothing and just listen to someone who needed to be heard.
I did this with my mother, and I say this with love. I am terrible at just listening to my mother without jumping in with advice or trying to fix things or redirecting the conversation. So I made a deal with myself. Tea, sofa, phone face down. She talks, I listen.
How long did she talk?
1 hour and 47 minutes, not even joking. And here's what blew me away. By the end of it, she looked lighter. She said, I feel like you really heard me today. And I thought, how often have I been in the room but not actually present? How often have I given her my half attention and called it quality time?
That one hit hard. Day 3 through 7 were about small daily habits, smiling genuinely at a stranger, saying please and thank you with actual eye contact, leaving an anonymous kind note somewhere public, paying for a stranger's coffee without telling them, and making dua for someone you struggle to forgive.
That last one, making dua for someone you struggle to forgive, was the hardest one for me in week 1, because your heart knows when it's faking. You can say the words, but if the intention isn't there, you feel the hollow echo of it.
It took me 3 tries to get through it without the bitterness creeping in, but by the 3rd time, something shifted, something softened.
And that's the miracle of consistent intention. You keep showing up, even imperfectly, and eventually the heart follows. Week 2 is where the challenge really opens up. We call these deeds that reach outward, because now you're moving beyond your immediate circle into the community.
Day 8 was a watershed moment for a lot of people in our community who took on this challenge with us. We asked everyone to identify one person in their neighborhood, not a close friend, not a family member, one person on the edges of their daily life who they suspected was lonely. And the responses we got from people who tried this, honestly, we had to take breaks reading them because they were so emotionally overwhelming.
One woman in our community, let's call her Hannah, she noticed an elderly man who lived 3 doors down from her. She'd wave at him sometimes, he always waved back, but she had never once spoken to him beyond pleasantries. So on day 8, she made extra food during her iftar cooking, knocked on his door and just said, "We made too much, can we share?"
What happened?
He invited her in, and she found out he was completely alone. His wife had passed 2 years ago. His kids lived abroad. He'd been eating cereal for iftar because he never learned to cook properly and had no one to eat with.
Ugh, my heart.
She ended up sharing iftar with him every single evening for the rest of Ramadan, and he told her at the end, and this is what gets me, he said, "I didn't think anyone noticed I was here anymore."
I want to stop there for a second because that sentence deserves its own moment of silence. I didn't think anyone noticed I was here anymore. How many people around us are carrying that feeling right now, today, as we speak?
That's the whole point of this challenge. The good deeds aren't just about the person receiving them, they're about waking us up to what's right in front of us.
Days 9 through 14 included things like volunteering at a food pantry or charity kitchen, spending time with children in an orphanage or underprivileged school, writing heartfelt letters of gratitude to teachers or mentors from your past, cleaning up a public space quietly without being asked, donating blood if medically able, and on day 14, something we called the visibility deed.
Tell them about the visibility deed, because this one is unique.
So, the visibility deed was about recognizing someone whose work we take completely for granted. The garbage collector, the security guard, the janitor, the street cleaner, and going out of your way to acknowledge them. Not just a nod, not just a thanks, a real moment of human recognition. Learn their name, ask how they're doing, actually listen.
I went to our building's security guard, Amjad, who has been at his post every single morning for the 4 years I've lived there. I realized I didn't even know his full name. I'd said good morning probably 1,000 times and never once asked him what his morning was actually like.
What did he say when you stopped to really talk?
He looked almost confused at first, like he was waiting for a complaint or a request. And then when he realized I just wanted to talk, just wanted to know about him, he kind of lit up. He told me about his son back home who just got into university. He was so proud. He pulled out his phone to show me a picture of the kid.
That image. A security guard showing a stranger a picture of his son. That's the whole world right there.
Week 3. This is where things get quietly profound. We call these deeds that go deeper because they're not about doing more. They're about being more intentional with the energy you carry.
Day 15 was about what we called the silence deed. One full day of choosing silence over argument. Not passive silence, not suppression, but conscious, deliberate peace. Every time you felt the urge to argue, to snap, to prove a point, you breathe, you pause, and you choose a gentler response.
I failed this one. I want to be upfront about that. I made it to about 2 p.m. before my colleague said something in a meeting that I disagreed with loudly and publicly and immediately.
At least you're honest.
But here's what was interesting. I noticed the failure. I was aware of the gap between who I was trying to be and who I defaulted to being. And that awareness, that noticing, is itself a kind of spiritual progress.
Absolutely. Days 16 through 21 were about writing an anonymous letter of encouragement and leaving it in a library book. Taking the time to visit a sick person you've been meaning to visit for months. Forgiving a debt that someone owes you and telling them it's canceled. Teaching a skill or piece of knowledge to someone younger. Supporting a small local business by choosing them over a corporation. Spending one entire evening with your phone turned completely off. And on day 21, the hardest one yet, giving sadaka in a way that cost you something real.
Not spare change, not leftovers, something that required sacrifice.
A woman in our community donated the money she had been saving for new clothing during Ramadan, a tradition she looked forward to every year. She gave all of it to a family she'd heard about through a local charity who had lost their home.
And she said, and I will never forget this as long as I live, she said, when I stopped buying something for myself, I felt fuller than I've ever felt wearing anything new.
That right there is the essence of Ramadan. The willingness to hollow yourself out a little bit so something real can be poured in.
Week 4, the last 10 days of Ramadan, the sacred stretch. And we call these deeds that leave a mark, because these are the ones you want to echo. These are the ones that outlive the moment.
Day 22, plant something, literally and figuratively. Plant a tree, a flower, a herb, or plant a seed of hope in someone else by sharing your story of a struggle you survived.
There was a man, let's call him Tariq, who took this deed and went to a community garden early in the morning during Suhoor time. He planted a small jasmine bush, and next to it, he left a handwritten sign that said, "This was planted in Ramadan with a prayer for whoever needs beauty in their day."
I love that so much.
3 weeks later, a woman messaged our page saying she found that sign. She had been walking through that park crying after a hospital visit for her mother. She said that little sign stopped her in her tracks. She said it felt like it had been left specifically for her.
Because it was. It just didn't know her name yet.
Days 23 through 29 covered things like writing an anonymous letter of encouragement and leaving it in a library book, taking the time to visit a sick person you've been meaning to visit for months, forgiving a debt that someone owes you and telling them it's canceled, teaching a skill or piece of knowledge to someone younger, supporting a small local business by choosing them over a corporation, spending one entire evening with your phone turned completely off, and on day 21, the hardest one yet, giving sadaqah in a way that cost you something real.
Not spare change, not leftovers, something that required sacrifice. A woman in our community donated the money she had been saving for new clothing during Ramadan, a tradition she looked forward to every year. She gave all of it to a family she'd heard about through a local charity who had lost their home.
And she said, and I will never forget this as long as I live. She said, when I stopped buying something for myself, I felt fuller than I've ever felt wearing anything new.
That right there is the essence of Ramadan, the willingness to hollow yourself out a little bit so something real can be poured in.
Week 4, the last 10 days of Ramadan, the sacred stretch. And we call these deeds that leave a mark, because these are the ones you want to echo. These are the ones that outlive the moment.
Day 22, plant something, literally and figuratively. Plant a tree, a flower, a herb, or plant a seed of hope in someone else by sharing your story of a struggle you survived.
There was a man, let's call him Tariq, who took this deed and went to a community garden early in the morning during suhoor time. He planted a small jasmine bush, and next to it, he left a handwritten sign that said, "This was planted in Ramadan with a prayer for whoever needs beauty in their day."
I love that so much.
3 weeks later, a woman messaged our page saying she found that sign. She had been walking through that park crying after a hospital visit for her mother. She said that little sign stopped her in her tracks. She said it felt like it had been left specifically for her.
Because it was. It just didn't know her name yet.
Days 23 through 29 covered things like writing an anonymous letter of encouragement and leaving it in a library book, taking the time to visit a sick person you've been meaning to visit for months, forgiving a debt that someone owes you and telling them it's canceled, teaching a skill or piece of knowledge to someone younger, supporting a small local business by choosing them over a corporation, spending one entire evening with your phone turned completely off, and on day 21, the hardest one yet, giving sadaqah in a way that cost you something real.
Not spare change, not leftovers, something that required sacrifice. A woman in our community donated the money she had been saving for new clothing during Ramadan, a tradition she looked forward to every year. She gave all of it to a family she'd heard about through a local charity who had lost their home.
And she said, and I will never forget this as long as I live. She said, when I stopped buying something for myself, I felt fuller than I've ever felt wearing anything new.
That right there is the essence of Ramadan, the willingness to hollow yourself out a little bit so something real can be poured in.
Week 4, the last 10 days of Ramadan, the sacred stretch. And we call these deeds that leave a mark, because these are the ones you want to echo. These are the ones that outlive the moment.
Day 22, plant something, literally and figuratively. Plant a tree, a flower, a herb, or plant a seed of hope in someone else by sharing your story of a struggle you survived.
There was a man, let's call him Tariq, who took this deed and went to a community garden early in the morning during suhoor time. He planted a small jasmine bush, and next to it, he left a handwritten sign that said, "This was planted in Ramadan with a prayer for whoever needs beauty in their day."
I love that so much.
3 weeks later, a woman messaged our page saying she found that sign. She had been walking through that park crying after a hospital visit for her mother. She said that little sign stopped her in her tracks. She said it felt like it had been left specifically for her.
Because it was. It just didn't know her name yet.
Days 23 through 29 covered things like spending Laylatul Qadr in prayer for people you've never met, writing a dua list for your community, not just your personal wishes, preparing and distributing sahur packets to early morning workers, calling someone who used to be close but drifted away, creating a piece of art or writing that carries a message of hope and leaving it in a public place, spending time with a person who is grieving and just sitting with them in their grief without trying to fix it, and making a specific commitment to carry one deed beyond Ramadan permanently.
That last one, day 29, the permanent deed, this is where the challenge transforms from a sprint into a lifestyle.
The point is that 30 days of intentional goodness rewires you. It changes what you notice. It changes what you reach for.
We asked our community, what deed are you keeping beyond Ramadan? Answers ranged from, I'll call my grandmother every Friday, no matter what, to, I'll never let a stranger feel invisible in my presence again.
And day 30 was about gratitude, a letter written to no one in particular and everyone at once. Gratitude for the 30 days, for the growth, for the discomfort, for the moments that cracked you open.
One response from a 17-year-old girl. She wrote, Dear Ramadan, you made me see that I am not too small to matter. Every kindness I gave away came back to me as proof that I exist and that I belong.
A 17-year-old wrote that.
And now I'm completely undone.
So after all of this, the 30 days, the stories, the failures, the breakthroughs, what did the challenge actually teach us? Zara, I want to hear you say it.
The challenge taught me that goodness is a practice, not a personality trait. It's not something you either have or you don't. It's something you choose and choose again every single morning. Some days it flows out of you like water. Some days you have to drag it out of yourself. But the choosing, that's where the character lives.
For me, and this is the part I want to sit with for a moment, the challenge taught me about visibility. How often we move through the world surrounded by people who are invisible to us, not because they're small, but because we've trained ourselves not to see them. And the moment you start practicing the art of truly seeing people, something shifts inside you permanently.
One of the scholars once said, the truest test of a person's character is how they treat someone who can do nothing for them in return. And 30 days of intentional good deeds is 30 days of practicing exactly that.
It's also about the architecture of your inner life, not just the mosque attendance count or pages of Quran recited, though those are beautiful, but the person you are becoming, the way you wake up on day 30 compared to day 1.
Someone messaged us saying this challenge fundamentally changed their career. They were in a high-stress corporate environment, treating colleagues like obstacles. By day 30, the dissonance between who they were becoming and who they were at work became impossible to ignore. They eventually moved into social work.
30 days rewrote an entire life trajectory.
Because genuine goodness doesn't just change moments, it changes directions.
Before we close today, let's walk through all 30 deeds one more time, not as instructions, but as an invitation, a menu of possibilities for your Ramadan. Take what resonates, adopt what needs adopting, make it yours.
Day 1, the apology deed. Reach out to someone you owe a genuine sorry. Day 2, the listening deed. Give someone your full, undivided presence. Day 3, smile genuinely to 3 strangers today. Day 4, say please and thank you with real eye contact and intention. Day 5, leave an anonymous, kind note somewhere public. Day 6, pay for a stranger's meal or drink without telling them. Day 7, make sincere dua for someone you find it hard to forgive.
Day 8, find one lonely person on the edges of your daily life and break that distance. Day 9, volunteer your time at a local food pantry, soup kitchen, or charity. Day 10, spend quality time with children who have less access to love or resources. Day 11, write a heartfelt letter of gratitude to a teacher, mentor, or role model. Day 12, quietly clean up a public space no one asked you to clean. Day 13, donate blood or register as an organ donor if medically able. And day 14, the visibility deed. Truly see and acknowledge someone's work who is invisible.
Day 15, the silence deed. Choose peace over argument for one entire day. Day 16, leave an encouraging message anonymously inside a library book. Day 17, visit someone who is sick or homebound that you've been meaning to visit. Day 18, forgive a debt someone owes you and release it with a full heart. Day 19, teach someone younger a skill or piece of wisdom you carry. Day 20, support a small local business instead of a large corporation. Day 21, give sadaqah that costs you something real, not just convenience.
Day 22, plant something, literally or figuratively. Day 23, on Lailatul Qadr, pray specifically for strangers who are suffering. Day 24, write a dua list for your community, not just yourself. Day 25, prepare and distribute sahur packets to early morning workers. Day 26, call or visit someone you've drifted away from. Day 27, create something, a painting, a poem, a letter of hope, and leave it where it can find someone who needs it. Day 28, sit with someone in their grief without fixing anything. Just be there. Day 29, choose one deed to carry beyond Ramadan permanently. And day 30, write a letter of gratitude to no one and everyone for everything.
30 days, 30 doors, each one opening into something you didn't know you needed.
Before we close today, I want to say something to whoever's listening right now and wondering if they're capable of this, wondering if they're too busy, too distracted, too small, too broken, too late.
You're not.
You are not to anything. Goodness doesn't require a perfect person. It requires a willing one. It requires someone who says, today, just today, I will try, and then says it again tomorrow and the day after that.
Ramadan is not about becoming someone else. It's about returning to the best version of yourself, the one that's always been there, just buried sometimes under the weight of the world.
The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that even a smile in the face of your brother is charity. A smile, the most effortless, most natural, most human gesture in existence, counts. Your goodness counts even when it feels like nothing, even when no one sees it, even when you don't feel it yourself.
So here's our challenge to you. This Ramadan, 30 days, one deed a day. They don't have to be the ones we listed. You know your life, your community, your people. But commit to one intentional act of goodness every day and watch, just watch, who you become by the end of it.
Come back and tell us. We want to hear your stories. Your day 8, your breakthrough, the stranger you fed, the apology that set you both free.
That's what the comment section is for. That's what this community is built on. Talk, Learn, Teach is not just a channel, it's a conversation between people who are all trying to be a little better, a little braver, a little more present.
If this episode moved you, please share it. Share it with your family group chat, your friend who always asks, what's a good Ramadan goal this year? Share it with someone who doesn't celebrate Ramadan but needs to hear that kindness is a daily practice worth taking seriously.
Subscribe to Talk, Learn, Teach if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a conversation that could shift how you see the world. Leave us a comment. Tell us which deed resonated most. Share your story. Tell us what you're carrying beyond Ramadan.
We read every single comment, every one, because you're not just numbers to us. You are the reason we show up here.
Ramadan Mubarak to every soul listening. May your 30 days overflow with softness and strength. May this be the Ramadan you look back on and say, that's when I changed.
From me, Bilal.
And from me, Zara.
This is Talk, Learn, Teach. Talk, learn, teach, and above all, be good.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Until next time.